So give me 2 minutes here. Let's just double check this stream and make sure we're good to go. I want to be able to see the comments coming in. What's up? What's up? Okay, here we go. We are streaming on all channels now. Cool. All right. What's up, everyone? Happy hump day. Let's wait for some people to get up in here. Dre REI is in here again. Appreciate the consistency, Sandy. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names, man. This is awesome. This is great. Happy to have you guys. We'll get started here in just a moment. Wolfpack is in the building. Happy hump day, guys. So as we normally do, I would love to know about your week. I'd love to know how your week is going. On Monday, we talked about taking action. What were some of the action steps that you guys are going to be doing? Whether it was, I don't care if it was tiny, small. I wasn't telling you guys go out and make 100 phone calls. I was saying go out, make one call, make one offer, speak to one motivated seller. That was it. Because we start, from a place of cultivating habits, that the unconscious competence and then getting to, that's the place we want to get. Just being competent subconsciously, basically making these things part of your habits and routines. But in order to get that started, man, we got to start from the right place. We got to start small and build up. Mike Mills, what's up, man? I got your, I don't remember if it was an email or comment, but I got it. I got it pulled up on the screen. I'll make sure I hit you, man. I got your questions here for you. Rob, welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here. Sorry, I'm getting excited, man. I'm like vibrating the feed here. All right, so but I'm very happy to see you. I'm glad to see you guys showing up. I appreciate the questions. We got some very good stuff to get into tonight. So let's give it maybe one more minute. I don't like to wait too long because if other folks are late, they're late. I don't want to penalize you guys for being here and on time, which is something I very much appreciate. We got Mike Ford in the building from Baltimore. What's going on, man? Appreciate you being here. So with that said, hey, I lied. We're not even going to give him a minute. Let's I value your time, my time, so let's just go ahead and get into this thing. All right, so appreciate you guys being here. As in what has become typical fashion, I'd like to start off with a comment that is not so specific to wholesaling, but a little piece of if we call this Mike's philosophy corner or whatever. Okay, so I got a some commentary and email from a student essentially saying that they were feeling a little bit discouraged, right? And they're setting goals, and this is something I believe in very much, the importance of setting your goals. It's an exercise that I have all of my students do, and it's something that I believe in so strongly. I do it on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day. I journal every morning, but sometimes I do it in the evenings as well. And I think it's very important to have that focus because as cliche as it sounds, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I also believe in the power of visualization, law of attraction. It's not just believing in it. Like I've seen these things in my life to the point where I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that it's true. Whether you agree or not, it's kind of up to you. But I know that to be true in my life. But again, I think there is so much. Kevin, hey, how are you doing? Everybody, please do follow my man, Kevin Thatcher. I've been talking to you guys about this man on several of our live streams. That is my preferred title company of choice when I have the option. That is Independence Title in Fort Lauderdale, Prospect Road. These guys will take care of you. Look out for you. I have some even better things to say a little bit later on in the live stream. And but definitely follow this man. Not only a great, very good at what he does. I told you the story last week about him solving the that was the story we talked about the fraud. So protecting your interests, but also great guy, great dad. There's a lot of philanthropy work in our community. So awesome dude. Follow them. Independence Title, Kevin Thatcher. Hit him up. Good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. So I got a little bit lost. All right. So we're talking about setting goals, right? And so I definitely believe in doing that. But, we're only human beings. So we all want to be positive and try positive, to embody that. But, shit happens. Life happens. And there are times where if you're not hitting your goals and the time you expect it can be a little bit discouraging. So the advice that I would have for you is to continue doing that, continue focusing on that. But, essentially it is as important to look to the top of the summit, to look at the peak, to look at your goals, as it is from time to time to look down at the base of the mountain. So a lot of times that happens to me in my life all the time in all types of areas where I'm, even if I'm not completely discouraged, I'm like, damn, how come I didn't hit that goal yet? Like, I feel like I'm a little bit behind. And so when those moments happen, and they will happen, I like to look back and see, how far I've come and the things that I have achieved. And that's not only inspirational and motivational, it helps me stay on track. It gives me that good feeling. And when you celebrate your small achievements and accomplishments, it really helps it changes everything. Your mindset, knowing what you thought you could accomplish at one point and then what you have accomplished, and it gives you that motivation, and also starts attracting these things to you, opportunities that you wouldn't have known, that you maybe wouldn't have seen otherwise. Some of my best either deals or other accomplishments in my life kind of came out of the blue, but also from really focusing on the positive things in my life. So, there are times, I have my financial goals and I'll say, man, how come I'm not there yet? I set big goals, and I recommend you do that bigger than you think you can. But then I'll look back and say, I might not be there yet, but shit, I ain't been in a damn office in about, 6 years. I haven't put on a tie. If I didn't feel like doing it, I didn't have to answer to anybody in years. And I look back and I say, man, I remember when I got here and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have shit. And, I've come a long way. And, I can celebrate those achievements. And, some people in society will try to make you feel bad about, be humble, be humble. Hey, fuck that, man. You achieve something, you deserve to feel good about it, and you should celebrate other people's achievements also. Don't be a hater. But same thing. Physically, shit. I try to eat well. I try to go to the gym, not perfectly, but I do my thing. And bro, I'm not rocking that six pack, man. But I remember majority of my life, I was the fat kid. I remember getting teased. I remember all that shit. So while I still want to stay on my path and on my goals, I absolutely remember those days, the belly hanging over and getting teased and shit like that. And I think, I might not be where I am, but by making that progress, I'm in a much better place now, and I'm going to keep making that progress and get to these better and better places. So again, we're starting outside of the wholesale specific realm, but I find that I like to start the calls this way, and hopefully that helps some of you guys to really just start thinking about, don't just look to the top, the summit, your goals. It's important. I recommend you do it, but look where you're coming from. Look at the things you've achieved. Even if you're celebrating the process, even if you don't have the results yet, maybe your weight loss results, you can celebrate the fact that you went to the gym 7 days the last week, and that's absolutely something to be celebrated. You should talk about it. You should feel good about it. Discipline. And the way you do one thing and the way you celebrate one thing, maybe one area of your life, it impacts every single area of your life. I promise you that. That's something I learned a long time ago. I think I might have gotten that from Jim Rohn. If you guys don't know, you should read and listen to everything the guy's ever put out. It's Tony Robbins' mentor. Very inspirational stuff. But yeah, you should go check them out. All right, so it looks like we got some folks in here. Welcome everybody. Shouts out to you all. John, who's this? Terry, Westside, what's up? Mario's in here. What up? Kim. All right. Sandy, can I talk about the mentorship program? I can. I will. Let's dive into that in a little bit. If you want all of the details and you want to see it like kind of spelled out, just visit www.wholesalingwithmike.info. Wholesalingwithmike.com is where I have like all my information. So that's the blog, that's all the free downloads, the contracts, videos, and then extensions of the YouTube videos that are like longer and more detailed. I've got the free download stuff there. I've got some PDFs, some stuff for sales, a lot of free content. So wholesalingwithmike.com is for that. If you're specifically interested in mentoring and mentorship and you want to see how it's broken down and how the program works, I can speak to that in a bit, but I really want this to be a lot of content on this call. But you can see that spelled out for you at wholesalingwithmike.info. And if you have questions, just email me privately would be best. All right. So, Mike, we got a lot of mics on the call. You guys are blessed with some damn good names, guys. Just wanted you to know. Thank you for New York for joining us. All right, so now we got, thank you guys who sent your questions in advance. I'm going to jump into a couple of those right now. And then if you guys, if this inspires some thought on your part or you have follow-up questions or even just your own questions, be sure to type it in the chat box and I will check on all of our feeds and get back to you. I was going to say something else, but, this is what happens when you do the live sessions. But thank you all for being here, man. Definitely appreciate it and definitely happy to talk to you guys. Also, if you've been doing some stuff during the week, let me know so I can give you feedback on that stuff. This can be invaluable. Sometimes, you know, it takes just one piece of advice or one little tweak in something you're doing or a response you got, how to respond, that can really change your business. This business is so crazy because every one deal, especially the first, can have exponential results because every one deal you do, maybe, you know, a 10K here, 10K here, 20K here. And then it's not always that way. You know, you hear about that, but sometimes it's 2K, but shit, I'm not turning that down. But that can expand your business so much more. You can put into your marketing and stuff like that. And Hills. Yes, Hills got some great names as well. No judgment there. Jay Johnson, what's up? All right, guys. So thank you again for being here. Let me jump into some of these questions that we have to get us started. All right. All right. So the first one I got, I'm going to start with one that just pisses me off because, you know, I get fired up and then I'm fucking angry. All right, so I have a video on my YouTube channel and I give advice about proof of funds. Very popular topic. And essentially when you are making an offer, people will say, okay, well, I want to know that you have the money. So give me proof of funds because we're making a cash offer, right? Now, what I will say is it's actually very less common when you're dealing with a motivated seller, especially it's directly related to their levels of motivation. It's very rare that you're going to get asked for proof of funds from a direct seller. Typically, this is coming when there is maybe another family member involved or something like that. That can happen, but it's more common if the person is working with an attorney or realtor. In most of the cases that I deal with that I've heard about and feedback I've gotten, this is when you are dealing with the realtor. Now, some people have said you should just write on your contract that your contract is contingent on getting, you know, some kind of loan in the form of a private loan or whatever. I would tell you that that is very bad advice. You want to get your contract accepted. You don't want to be giving people reasons to not accept your offer. Doubt. You want to create the strongest case possible. You will pay cash and you will close in X amount of days, you know, short closing period. You don't have to pay realtor costs or commissions, stuff like that. So that's your USP, your new unique selling proposition, right? Or unique selling proposal, however you want to put it. So the point here is you should always write up your offers as cash. Now, some people feel a little bit uncomfortable, like, you know, is that dishonest or stuff like that? And it's not. This is going back to Rich Dad 101, how the wealthy accumulate wealth is primarily by using other people's money, OPM. I have a cash buyers list and database of over 12,000 cash buyers. Now, a lot of people that are buying properties from me, and a lot of times I'm just the middleman. I'm letting them, you know, putting my buyers in touch with other people's inventory. Those are not necessarily things I send out on my blast. And it's sometimes, obviously, when my blast goes out, that's my direct stuff. But a vast majority, you know, a lot of my buyers, they're not just using that money sitting in the bank. They are using hard money. They are using private funds. All I care about is when it comes to the closing table is cash coming to the account on that day. You know, and that's what you need to think about. So when you're making an offer for cash, you do have contingencies in your contract that we've talked about before. You can also find that in my Ironclad Contract Clauses PDF that's available on my website. I go into more detail. Also have YouTube videos about this stuff. But essentially, yes, you're making the your contract, you're writing it up as cash, but there are contingencies in there saying, you know, your deal has to meet certain requirements. But if that holds true, you bring it to market, sell to your buyers, the cash will be there. You will close that deal in cash, whether it's the cash from your back pocket, from your bank account, or it's from a hard money lender or a private lender or your uncle or auntie. It doesn't matter. It's going to be there. But in order to get your offers accepted in the first place, they have to be written up as cash. They don't have to, but there's just a much, much higher chance of them being accepted, and especially accepted at a discount. Remember, everything we do is win-win. So if you're going to be asking the seller, hey, sell to me below retail, you got to provide that value. And by providing that value, they're going to get a cash closing, and they're going to get it very quickly, typically within, you know, 2 to 4 weeks. Syndicator, got to give you a shout out. Thank you for being here again. Always a pleasure to see you. Now, some of the feedback I've gotten, that was the first part. Now, the second part is somebody wrote, oh, so you're telling people to lie. You're telling people to lie. So let me go, let me explain this. I am not telling people to lie. I would never recommend doing that. So for the reason I just explained, that's one half of why it's not a lie. It's just that some people don't necessarily understand creative real estate investing. They think if you buy, the person who buys the $50 million apartment paid $50 million. It's typically not how it works. So there are a couple things that I want to mention, right? So when you're doing this proof of funds, the only proof of funds that's going to be, let's say 100%, is having that cash in the bank. So if you have that, you give your bank statement, the proof of funds is a done deal. Cool. If you have it, do it. My point is, a lot of you don't have that option. And so in that case, you could either give up and not do anything, or you could get a little bit creative. And so in my video on YouTube, I talked to you about sites that will provide you a proof of funds letter. Now, in most cases, this is more or less a hard money pre-approval, right? Now, in the majority of cases, typically this is just the seller or the realtor doing their due diligence, and it is up to them what they would like to consider proof of funds. The burden is not on you, right? So in some cases, and many cases, you might have a bank. Let's say if you're bidding on an REO, and they might say, hey, we only accept a bank statement in your name. Cool. You're probably not going to be able to do that deal. And you move to the next one. You could even get a little bit creative. You can call someone who does have that bank statement and ask them to be a co-buyer on your contract, and they will sign as co-buyer, and that'll be acceptable. And there are a couple other ways we can get around it. But for the sake of my point that I'd like to make, let's just say, okay, cool. That doesn't work. We go to the next one. And then some realtors will say, okay, you got this proof of funds, and there are places that will give it to you that, and I have it in my video, for free online. They give you a letter. If the realtor chooses to accept that, great, do that deal. In some cases, they won't, and they'll say, no, we need a bank statement. There are some places that will give you a proof of funds letter with a bank statement. Typically, those are not the free sites, but you will pay for it, and they will give you back a letter saying, hey, we'll give them this cash, and here's a bank statement to show that we have the cash we're willing to loan. Now, it's not going to work every time, but a lot of the questions I get, you guys are asking for techniques or lists or shit that works 100% of the time. And in most cases, it doesn't exist. But the point that I've been trying to make over these live sessions is that you don't need to be having your deals accepted and winning all the time. In fact, as the example we looked at last week, this is the only business I know of where you can fail 99% of the time, and 1% you can make that deal. If you fail, if you make 100 calls, I said this on the last stream, and 99 of them get rejected, and you do one deal even in 1 month, and you make $10,000, and you could do that every month, you're a six-figure income earner. And if you get in the habit, you can probably make a lot more than 100 calls in a month. You can probably do that in a week. And then, obviously your results go up. And once you have some cash in the bank, now you do have a proof of funds letter. That opens up even more deals, and you have more money for marketing, opens up more deals, et cetera, et cetera. So the point there is, it doesn't have to work all of the time. You just got to find the deals where it will be accepted. Now, the other point that I wanted to make here is that, so again, the bigger picture is that you were not lying. You were just using, you're presenting people saying, hey, is this acceptable to you? You don't say that, by the way. Don't say that. But essentially, you're just showing to them, and they'll say yes or no. And a part of the point that I wanted to make is that a lot of the times, people are just trying to qualify you to make sure that you're kind of serious, right? And so that's why the burden of proof is on them. Now, in the case of, let's say, a bank, like a short sale, and you put together that whole package, it's going to be a lot more strict, right? So you'll probably do less of those deals, but it's not impossible. But a lot of times that's just at the realtor's discretion. They're just trying to screen you and qualify you. So one thing I talk to my students about extensively is presentation, right? And so what I mean by that is a lot of times the way you speak, the way you present yourself, if you use terminology, if you speak in a confident way, if you have some level of education, you're educated to the point where you can sound. And then also just your delivery. You want to sound like a fucking boss. You do not want to come to people like a beggar, right? Oh, please, 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 can you take my offer? I really need this wholesale deal to work so I can pay my rent this month. Even if you're not saying that, that attitude, it conveys, it comes out. It's in your energy. It's in your presence, right? So I really talk to people about even the whole, how you talk and how you communicate and how you speak. and why that's so important in presenting yourself. And I think that's important in any type of negotiation. A lot of times when you speak like a fucking boss, for lack of better terminology, these people may not even ask for a proof of funds. And, you know, people could tell me that's not true, that doesn't happen. It's happened to me more times than I can count. So I can tell you for a fact. I have HUD statements that can tell you for a fact. I have wire transfers that will tell you for a fact that it is true, right? So that you can absolutely, the way you speak, you know, if you say, hey, is there a lockbox on the property? Do you think maybe, you know, I could get that lockbox? The person that talks like that is probably going to be less likely to get the box than the person who speaks from a confident state, who talks like they've done many deals, who speaks with a state, a place of expectancy. Like they expect an answer. Hey, what's the lockbox code? I might be there in the next 48 hours. I'll stop by and take a look, and then I'll let you know. Boom. Like it can be literally that simple, but it's your demeanor and the way that you come across that's going to help you get those deals, right? So that's kind of the main point that I wanted to make. Ace Marketing is back on a call. What's up? I will check your comment in 1 second, but before I lose my train of thought, that brings me to a question that I got literally just before this call that I wanted to highlight. Now, all right, this is from my student Donovan at 550 sent this to me. Donovan, I don't know if you're on the call. If not, this is what I don't think was even meant for the call, but it's related to what we're saying here. So I will email you back if you're not here. But he made an offer, right? And then he says the agent, so it's on a listed property, called and asked me for a copy of the land trust. Now, this is why your education is going to be pretty important. So, you know, I have a video on land trust. It is an amazing vehicle, not only for flipping and wholesaling and everything I do, but things that are in my future. You know, I got a daughter and, you know, taking title to properties, all kind of stuff that I'm not even there yet, but I know the benefits are there. And a lot of my buyers have benefited from this as well. But I love land trusts. Now, I'll tell you this much. Land trusts, to my knowledge, are only recognized and legal in like 6 states. Florida happens to be one of them. Now, even within those 6 states, the law can differ from state to state. So it's not like there's one land trust law. And I'm not knowledgeable about the other 5. I'll tell you that straight up. One of them is Hawaii, Illinois, Virginia, I think like North Dakota or somewhere weird like that. So as far as my students go, when we're doing land trusts, we only do them in the state of Florida. If you want to do them, if you live in one of those other states, it can be an amazing vehicle, but you'd have to look into, you know, your own state and do your work and education. So, okay, so Donovan is asking, she asked for a copy of the land trust. So typically, this is how I would respond to that. I got this pulled up here for you guys. And this is where education comes into comes into play. So without getting too boring for just a moment, let me back this up because my vision is not the best, and this is very small print. Okay. Third parties dealing with the trustee of a land trust can rely upon the deed and not look at the trust. In fact, they have no right to look at the trust. Florida Statute Section 689.071 subsection 4 says that a person dealing with the trustee does not have to look to the trust to see if the trustee has the right to sell the property and does not have to see if the beneficiaries are paid. Occasionally, an unenlightened title company or attorney dealing with a land trust will ask to see the trust. Such requests can be declined, and Section 689.071 subsection 4 pointed out to them. To protect the title company or attorney, subsection 5 says that a person dealing with the trustee cannot be sued by the beneficiaries of the trust. If the title company or attorney still demands to see the trust, you should choose another title company or attorney. And then there's more, but I won't get into all of that, right? And then, we got some other, I got some other stuff here pulled up. Guys, I got tons of this data. But again, here's another thing. Under the 2006 Land Trust Law, a land trust must be in writing. It should be executed prior to the deed, but if not, it is still valid if executed later. So the point that I would tell Donovan, and how I'm going to bring this back to the stuff we talked about in our, POF stuff, is to say, look, when you go back to the listing agent and you say something like, hey, thank you so much for helping me out. Just so you know, one of the reasons we use the land trust in all of our dealings is for the sake of anonymity and being anonymous, anonymity, right? And that's typically why we do it. It's for asset protection. And according to statute, blah, 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 subsection, blah, 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 you know, we're really not required to show that. So, and then talk like that. At that point, you are showing that you're educated. You're sounding like someone who's, it ain't their first time on the fucking block. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've done this shit before. How's the agent going to feel? The fact of the matter is most agents, and no disrespect if you're an agent, but most people don't know that. And so when you hit them with something like that, it's just like, wow, this motherfucker's on his shit. I shouldn't challenge him about this at all. He's just making me feel dumb. So let me pretend, oh yeah, you're right, and roll with you. And then from that point forward, the dynamics change. So now they don't look at you as someone who, is this person serious? Are they an amateur? Do I need to look at their POF? Whatever. Typically, when I have that conversation, I don't get asked for shit after that. Nobody's harassing me for my earnest money. Or even if they do ask me for it, it's like, yeah, it'll be there, right? And I don't get calls about it. They're not harassing me for proof of funds because I've demonstrated that I'm a higher caliber investor. I've done this before. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about to more of a degree than you know what you're talking about. And so that's the point that I'm making. If he goes back to this person, don't have this air of arrogance like, hey, I don't have to show you shit, right? Because then they might just fuck you over out of spite. But, you know, you show, I think I'm beating this a little bit much, but, you know, you can show that, hey, I'm competent in this area. And then people even feel a little bit bad that they're not, and they defer to you. And now the dynamics really change. The other point I'll make is when you say something like that, I'd say the majority of times, the person just like, okay, cool. Or I'll say something like, typically we don't do that until closing. And they'll say, okay, cool, as long as it's there at the closing. And that's cool. And then there's some times where they say, let me check with the seller. And I've had this even in the case of banks. And I've had it on both sides where they say, okay, cool, we'll do it your way. And I've had times where they've come back to me and say, no, we need to see the copy of the trust. Matter of fact, if you do this with Hubzu, which I know a lot of you have been asking questions about, after you win, you know, you typically, your Hubzu account is in your name. After you win, they will send you a contact request form, basically who's going to be on deed. You put the land trust, right? You send it back to them. They're going to say, we need to see a copy of the trust. You're going to hit them with this, no, we don't have to, which is true. That is the law. And then they're going to hit you back with, no, we need to see it. And at that point, you will need to present a copy of the trust, which is very easy to make, by the way. Much easier than you would think. And I think I have it on my website, wholesalermike.com, for you to download for free. You just got to get it notarized. And sometimes you can even show it not notarized, which has benefits as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. But the point is, sometimes, I was using Hubzu as an example, but I got to go back now. The realtor will say, my seller said, no, we need a copy of the trust. Or the bank said, no, we need a copy of the trust. And at that point, I will generally cave in and say, okay, I don't have to show it to you, but here you are, just to make it easy. But when you do that, you've still demonstrated your knowledge and your degree of competency. And so from then on after, that realtor still knows that, and they definitely treat you very much differently. So after going back, and Donovan, if you're not on the call, you know, I'll email him. And I'm talking to him if he's not on the call, but I will email him. But my point is, even once you say that, even if there's not going to accept, even, you know, it's by law they should, but if they're not going to accept it and you do have to provide the trust, you've demonstrated your proficiency. So at this point, they're typically not going to treat you that same way. If you ask for a lockbox, they're much more likely to just give it to you because you've shown like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. All right, so that's kind of the point that I wanted to make there. I think I beat that into the ground a bit. But I think it's an important thing to realize. All right, so I see we got a couple more people on the call. We got Max here. Brian, what's up? Pleasure to see you guys here. All right. All right, who else is here? Michael Ford, Chris Boyd. I might have a question from you. I get a question from A. Christopher on here somewhere, man. If that was you, I'll take a look. Rob Stevenson, most realtors do not care as long as it's a POF. Most will take less on the earnest money divide. That's very true. But again, just preparing people for, you know, if it doesn't happen. One thing I found with realtors is like certain professions, they'll tend to be like similar things that, similar characteristics. So typically like doctors, maybe they've all gone to med school for 8 years. They maybe are similar in some degrees. Like with realtors, I found that there's not shit that is similar. Some of these guys are so easygoing and they're cool and they want to help you and they want to bring you deals and they want to JV. And some hate your guts, or they're just really strict, or they buy the book. Some of them are really good people. Like I told you, my mom, but she does not deviate from anything that's not in the statutes or whatever. So they just, all these people come from all walks of life. You know, you got realtors that make $8,000 a year, and then you got realtors that make multi-million dollars a year. So just trying to give you guys a you know, kind of how to deal with everybody, right? All right, so I got a couple more questions here I'm going to jump into. Yeah, this feed covers the YouTube comments, so I didn't mean to ignore you guys. Let's see who's over here. Rashad's in here from Houston. What's up? Ace, I know you've been here all for quite some time. All right. What's your list of go-to sellers? Do you do most of your deals with realtors? So in terms of quantity, I'm doing most of my deals, the majority of them, on listed stuff. I call it low-hanging fruit. It doesn't cost you anything to get there. And of recent, you know, my students that are becoming more proficient, I'm doing JV deals with them, and then I do a lot of joint venture deals simply because I know a lot of wholesalers. When I told you guys, get on other wholesalers' lists for, you know, feed on the market, for JV opportunities, they have inventory, they have buyers. I'm not joking. One of my students, Renee, hit me up like yesterday or 2 days ago. She was like, Mike, what other wholesalers can I get on? And dude, I'm not trying to tell you guys not to work with other wholesalers. I gave her a list. Lex, my mentor, obviously #1. Jim Van Dyke. Rich Burdett with wholesale home sales, David Ligon. I've done deals with all these guys, man. So I just gave her a whole list, like follow them. And, you know, I really don't believe in that scarcity mindset. There's such an abundance, and you should be doing deals with all of these folks. But in terms of quantity, yeah, it's going to be listed stuff and then JV stuff, because I mean, it's obvious reasons. The MLS has hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of properties for sale, and then every time I touch another wholesaler, I'm essentially touching their buyers list, probably a couple thousand, and I'm touching their inventory, which could be anywhere from 10 to 20 deals, I don't know, a week depending. So I'm obviously gonna do more of those deals. Now sometimes when I do those deals, you know, we might be splitting or something like that. So profit-wise, spread-wise, it might be a little smaller. Some of the spreads on those might be 5,000. Some of them might be 2,000. But it might be 5,000, something like that. So deals that I do direct, I don't do them as often as I do in, you know, some of these other stuff and JVs, and, you know, when I'm doing trust deals, we're getting paid off the HUD and things like that. But in terms of like the bigger spreads per deals, those typically happen when I am dealing with direct with sellers. So quality-wise and the spreads will be bigger when I'm direct, but in terms of how many deals, like quantity and stuff like that, it'll be JV deals and listed stuff. All right, Mr. James is a local investor in Fort Myers, man. Let's work together. Hey, I'm about it, man. I'm absolutely about that life. All right, so a matter of fact, I had a question about people want to JV with me if they're not in the program. So guys, this is my thing. If you want to do JV deals with me, I do deals only in Florida. You're more than welcome to send me your deal. The stipulation is that you have to have it under direct contract. I've had times where, for me, I'm not going to say money's not important. Money's very important. I love money. I'll be very blunt with that. But my reputation comes first. So if I send something to my buyers and you tell me you have it, and then I get a buyer saying I want it, and I come back to you and I'm like, okay, let's do the deal. And you're like, oh, let me talk to so-and-so, or oh, it's not available. It makes me look bad. Ask me how I learned that. Learned that the hard way. So the first stipulation is that you've got to have it under direct contract, and I need you to send me a copy of the contract. I'll be more than happy to give you a JV agreement in writing, as I recommend you do. You know, so you feel comfortable and secure. But there's 7, almost 8 billion people on this earth. They've been, you know, and there's not one person that could say I ever tried to go around them on a deal, over them on a deal, cut them out of a deal at all. So obviously I'm going to give you that so you feel comfortable, but just so you know, but I do need to see the contract for that purpose. I want to know your purchase price. I do not mark up any deals if I'm working with anybody. I talked about that last time because that's my reputation. I'm not going to send a deal to my buyer marked up and then they Google it and find it lower. I lose my credibility. So that's the first two. Also, I will not be able to, I'm not going to be helping you get the deal. I'm not going to help you negotiate or do obstacles. It's just going to be like, if it looks good, I'll send it to my buyers. If I sell it for you, we split it 50-50. People who do need help going through the deals, going back to the agent, what do they, how do they deal with this problem, that problem? Can I help them? Can I co-sign, put my proof of funds out there, stuff like that? I do ask that those are people who are invested in my program. And that is because I spend a great deal of time and energy. I write up responses. I look through, people send me deals. I look at the comps. I do the analysis. Obviously, I show you because I want to teach the man to fish and not do the fishing for him. But I'll break it down. I'll shoot private videos and send you the links. I'll co-sign as a buyer, stuff like that. I spend a lot of time going back and forth on that. So I want to know you're serious. I want you in my program. And the point of it too, I want you to have skin in the game. I want you to be committed. And, there are people that just quit. No matter, there was some times where people would quit on me. I took it harshly. Like, I'm my coach. I got to make everyone successful. The fact is, people will quit. And so I don't want to go through all this work and invest my time, which is the most precious thing I have. And, just have people quit, basically. So if you need that help and that one-on-one and all the help and stuff, sign up for my program. You can look at all the details at wholesalingwithmike.info. If you have a deal and you just want to, you're looking for some buyers or something like that, you can just send it to me. And if it looks like a deal, I'll look at it very quickly. And you have it under direct contract, I'll send it to my buyers and we can do it 50-50. Those will be Florida deals only, by the way. All right. So cool. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. And I think that was Chris's question, right? Or Chris was saying many cash buyers and rehabbers don't use their own money. That's absolutely true. I mean, and they probably shouldn't, Even in most cases, I remember people asking me, hey, what do you think about hard money? I mean, I've even had family members say, I'm never doing hard money. It's a 15% interest. I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm saying it depends on the deal. You have to run your numbers and do, it makes sense if you can get that return on your investment. And so, yeah. All right, so let's jump into some of these questions. Another one, somebody asked me, can you wholesale apartments? So I've never wholesaled an apartment. I've done multifamily, so I've wholesaled stuff like duplexes, triplexes, stuff like that. I haven't done it. Wholesaling just means you get a contract, you can assign it, you could buy it and resell it. So you can wholesale apartment complexes. What I would say is for some of the folks asking that, I'm not trying to deter you, but a lot of people I knew that deal in apartments, they do other things like owner financing and stuff like that, because typically it's just going to be more barriers to entry. So typically the more barriers to entry a deal has, the more profits in it. So I'm sure you can do very well. But these guys are not going to be taking, $100 earnest money deposit. They're not going to accept some of these proof of funds. And, if you're selling to an end buyer, that end buyer is going to need to go in there and look at all the units and do a lot more due diligence. It's going to take more time. So my advice would be to wholesale residential or carve out a niche. I'm always a fan of going very deep and narrow as opposed to shallow and wide, just trying a little bit of everything. I'd recommend you do that. Build up some capital. You don't need to have $1 million to do $1 million deal. But if you can show, maybe you have a $10,000 to use as an earnest money deposit or something, I'd highly recommend you do that and build your way up into that if that's something that interests you, okay? All right, so let's see what else we got here. We got some good questions. I didn't even kind of look into the order that I want to answer these in, but all right, here's one. These are some quick ones I'm just going to run through. It's only take like a minute. What happens if a house is in litigation and can I still put a contract on that home? All right, so that question needs to be way more specific because in litigation just means that there's a legal action. So there's some kind of lawsuit. So it really depends on the type of legal action. My thing is like always try. The thing I really love about wholesaling is the fact that it's literally no risk. People throw this term around for all kinds of businesses or whatever marketing business or whatever. But literally, when you do your contracts properly, you put in your exit clauses and stuff like that, there really is no risk. So I'd say, go for it. You could be in a situation, where somebody has a lien on the house. What will happen is, if you, let's say the seller signs that contract and you don't know about the lien, when you go to close, that lien's going to pop up. You're not going to be able to get title insurance. The title company is not going to be able to give a policy. So at that point, whatever happens, I can't tell you because it depends on the situation, but I'd say you did a good thing because now you got your thorns into the deal. So whatever happens, whether the seller has to pay something to clear that title up, or you go to your buyer and say, hey, would you be willing to take the deal with this lien? And maybe you can mitigate it down in exchange for a $10,000 price reduction. And you go back to the seller and say, hey, you got to reduce your price by 10. If you want to be really negotiate about it, you can go back to the seller and say, hey, you got to negotiate your price by 20. And then you go back to the buyer and say, okay, I got you 10 off. You keep that 10 for yourself. I mean, you could do stuff like that, but it really depends. But my thing is, like, go ahead and try it. I would need more details to go into any more on that question. But try putting the contract on the home, and a lot of issues will come up during the title search. All right. Jameson wants to know, what are some ways to find cash buyers? Bro, go to my YouTube channel. I got probably about 4 to 5 different videos on finding cash buyers. So off the top, you could do, you can go to different websites like Sitex, data.com. You can go to the property appraiser site, find all of the properties that have been purchased without a mortgage. Those are cash buyers in most cases, and then send them direct mail. You can attend your local RIA meetings. You can go to meetup.com. Some of those groups actually have a mail list, so you can mail to the whole list. I got my website, cashbuyersdirect.com. That's where you can, if you don't want to do the legwork the hard way, you can just purchase a list from there. Go check it out. You'll get the free sample. I got a YouTube video showing you how to use it. Also comes with a free PDF. You can just download the PDF. You don't have to buy anything. Showing you some more strategies. You can put ads on Facebook. You can put ads on anywhere, LinkedIn, Facebook, Craigslist. You can put ghost ads if you don't have a property. You can put up bandit signs. I mean, there's a lot of ways. You go to gosection8.com, start calling landlords. I got a lot of videos on that, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but definitely check my website, cashbuyersdirect.com. Worst case, just download the free ebook and it'll give you more ideas than I got for you here. Property appraiser sites overlooked too, man. You can find, even if you see like LLCs, you can find, if an LLC is a buyer, you can just look them up usually online. I mean, in Florida, you go to sunbiz.org, but if you're someone else, just put it in Google. Usually you'll get a phone number. Then you don't even have to waste time, doing direct mail. You can probably just call them and have a conversation. A lot of people, even when they get the buyers list from my site, they're like, I want direct buyers. Some of these are LLCs. It's like, bro, a lot of smart investors, and especially investors who are doing this, with some level of repetition because they have that competency, for liability reasons, they don't just buy in their name. They tend to open up LLCs and buy it in the name of the LLC. So those are very much good sources of buyers, and you should absolutely be reaching out to LLCs. All right, let me pull some of these questions over. I got them on a different screen. All right, Edna says, how do you do a joint venture and how do you close the deal? All right, so I got a video again on YouTube. Just look it up. It's about doing joint venture deals. My biggest advice I can give to you all is to get every single agreement in writing. If you really want to be anal, you can even get it notarized. I typically don't, but at least get it in writing. And then also, I do stuff through email just so, not only because it's convenient, but you have that paper trail of all of your conversations should you ever have to appear in a court. So get everything in writing, and then just try to stay between the parties. So whether you're working with another wholesaler and your end buyer, or you're working between a seller and an end buyer or another wholesaler, just try to stay in between everything. Don't be like, hey, just call my buyer, stuff like that. Even if you have stuff in writing, it's very easy for them to still go around you. And then even if you do want to try to get back in, it's just a headache most of the time that's probably not even worth your time. So just stay in the middle. If party C has a question for party A, you ask them, you relay the message. You need wire instructions for the title company, you ask A, hey, who you guys closing with? Send me the wire instructions. Get the wire instructions, take A off of that email, and then send it to C and say, just wire the money and then let me know when it's done. They let you know, you let them know. Stay in the middle of everything. And then another question, actually you followed up. Wholesalers don't want to do a 50-50 joint venture, but how can you make a profit? Can you do a flat fee or 70-30, 70-40? Yeah, all of this is negotiation. You can. Me, I'm only going to do 50-50 profits, primarily because I don't want to mess with my reputation. Like I mentioned in the last video, our last live stream, we actually talked about this for a bit. A lot of wholesalers do mark up. Like if I have properties, they'll mark them up. I tell them they don't have to, but I've had guys that have marked up my properties. One wholesaler in particular, I know he deals with a lot of international buyers. They might not be as savvy. They might not look into things. He might just have great relationships. I don't know the details, but he has made more from just marking up than I did on the deal. That happens. I typically will only work with people who do 50-50. If you want to make it a 70-30 or whatever, you could do that. You could mark it up. That's completely at your discretion. Again, I would just say get it in writing. All right, and then if you want more details, go check our last live stream. All right, Jamil, what's up? When doing a double close, do you take your assignment contract to the title company, or is it a different contract? So when you're doing a double close, you're not doing an assignment. It's either or. You have an assignment, you do an assignment, or you have a double close. Now, not to confuse you guys, you can have a contract that is assignable and still choose to double close. Typically, I recommend that if your profits are going to be over $10,000, because that makes your profit spread is not disclosed to your end buyer, so they can't balk about it. They can't be like, oh, I'm not going to pay you that much or any shit like that, especially at the last minute. So if you're double closing, no, you're not going to bring the assignment contract because you're doing a different, you're doing two separate closings. You are closing an A to B, and typically you're going to be using transactional funding, and then you're going to be closing on a B to C contract. I got videos on that as well on my YouTube channel. If you're brand new to the game, you don't know what I'm talking about, I can put the link in the description, or you can just ask me for it in the chat box and I'll respond in more detail. But I'm just assuming you guys know that. If you're doing an assignment, then yes, you would present the assignment contract to your title company. That is correct. All right. Let's close some of these questions out that we answered. Oh, Mike is on the call. Mike, something with an M, right? Mills. Mike, you still there, man? I got your question that you emailed me earlier about auctions. Still there. All right. So here's the thing with online auctions. And the thing you mentioned was auction.com. I don't do them. And a part of the reason is why a lot of times some of the strategies or things I don't do is something I've done and I had a bad experience with or something like that. I've just actually never tried it. When I was coming up and I had my mentor, and when I was kind of new to the game, he told me about some of these kind of horror stories dealing with some of these auction properties. In his experience, this was more buying them on the auction steps, but he would talk about folks who, you got to be very careful and very kind of educate yourself early when you're doing these auction properties. He's worked with folks who have purchased, let's say a house. I'm not quoting exact numbers, but just as an example, $100,000 house, they got it for $20,000. They thought, oh, we're in the money, we got this amazing deal, paid for it, only to find out they were bidding on a second mortgage after the fact. Also, a lot of these things do not necessarily come with free and clear title, so you could be buying shit with like tons of liens, so your deal that looks amazing is really not that good. Now, my personal thing is I always like to reduce any type of downside and like to reduce risk. Like I talked to you guys about doing, there's a lot of strategies that encompass risk. Like for example, you could put an earnest, like I always say, your inspection period, and I recommend you do at least 7 days, is the time that you can cancel a deal without any repercussions. So even if, let's say the earnest money was $10,000 and you have $10,000, you know what? And you're like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to the title company. $10,000, here you go. It's in an escrow account. Within those, you could call on the 7th day before 5 p.m. and say, you know what? I don't like the color of that house. I want my money back. They will send you back all $10,000. You get your full earnest money deposit back. Now, after the 7th day, after your inspection period, it does not mean that you lose your money. It just means that now you have to close by the closing date. Typically, that's 30 days. You can probably get extensions, right? But if you don't, your deposit's now hard, meaning it's now refundable. So if you don't close, you're going to lose that earnest money deposit. So that's one way. You could probably do more deals if you did that. But for me, that's also risk. So unless it's, if it's like $1,000, if I'm willing to risk it and it feels like, I know it's a good deal or I know it's a good area, yeah, I'll risk it. But my point is, typically when you increase risk, it might be a bigger payoff. So by not taking some of these risks, I'm sure I'm leaving money on the table. But for the majority, in the vast majority of shit I do, I just like to keep my risk minimal. So a site like auction.com works like this. This is different from Hubzu, which is why I like Hubzu more. When you're working with auction.com, again, you don't have, in most cases, like the lien search and all that information that you need. So you're either going to be paying for those beforehand, which can add up very much, even if it, lien search maybe $120 or something like that. If you're doing it on all these properties and not even winning the bid, you're just throwing money out the window. But also, let's say you win on auction.com, right? The second you win, they take the credit card deposit that you put down and they hold that. And then you have to put up the earnest money deposit. So if you don't come through on that deal, let's say you only have, you're supposed to get the earnest money deposit, I think, in like 3 days. So now you either have to put that earnest money deposit up, and then you're going to, if you can't sell it, you lose your earnest money deposit, right? Which could be like $2,500 or something like that. Or if you don't even get to that point, you don't put the earnest money deposit, they take that, they already have the credit card deposit, that might be like, let's say $2,000 or whatever it is, and they take that. So if you can't sell the property, you lose it. Or you have to put up your earnest money deposit, you lose it. So for me, it's just a risk that there's no reason for me to take. If I was like struggling, I was like, oh, there's no other options for me, I can't find other lead source, I can't bid in other places, okay, then maybe I would want to just look at trying to make very, very smart decisions there. But for me, it just doesn't make sense, because why would I take all this risk when I'm not guaranteed? I like guaranteed success, guys. So, stuff like Hubzu, if you don't follow through, you get your account banned or something like that. But typically, you're not going to have that ramification. So that's kind of my thought on auctions. My mentor was like, yo, unless you want to make this like a strategy that you become very proficient in and you want to go to the courthouse and learn all this stuff, I recommend for the vast majority of you stay away from it. So I just never went there, and I never had to, so I just don't. Tax lien properties, same, man. Like, I have the strategies that are working for me, and if they ever start to like die out, I'd probably be open to looking into other stuff. Maybe in the future, I'll look into other things, and I will do it, but I do things slowly. Some people just have a limited, let's say, amount of resources, and they deploy to every strategy. Like, I have my book, 41 Ways to Find Motivated Sellers Fast as Hell. You guys should check it out if you haven't already. It's on my website. But I do not pursue 41 ways to find motivated sellers. I have my niches, they work for me, and that's what I do. And so another question I got today that I get very often is like, Mike, if you could do one lead source, just one, you could only pick one, you only have $200 or something, what would you pick? As if there's like this magical, like, universal answer. And I know I touch on this pretty much every call, but I also get this question every call and every day. But I think the first thing I think you need to do is look at your specific situation. And so this is something that I run through with every one of my students. It's like, you have to look at your situation. How much time do you have every week? Are you unemployed, or do you work 80 hours a week? Then how much money do you have available for marketing? If you have none, that's fine, but you're going to be more limited in what you can do. You'll probably be targeting MLS leads for free, and you're probably going to spend more time doing it. If you have some money, then we can look at it. Then look, so that's kind of the internal, right? What are my resources? What do I have available? Then you need to do your market research and make sure I'm in a place where this is going to be lucrative, where there is demand, things like that. And I have a couple YouTube videos showing you how to do that. Then on the other external side, what are the resources available in my area? So you guys have seen, I have a popular video talking about code violations. I have people email me or DM me or whatever every day. Like, Mike, there's no code. I can't find it in my city. It's like, bro, if it's not there, it's not there. Do some research, make sure you're just not missing it. But you might want to just pick a different strategy or move to a different zip code. Like the one I show in the video is Hollywood, Florida. There are a lot of cities right around there. Miramar, for example, does not have that the violations available with the address, to my knowledge, at least not at this time. So if you lived in Miramar and you were bitching about that, you could just literally look at the city that's borderline right there and just say, oh, well, this place has it, right? Same thing with like probates or eviction stuff that I like. I can go to the county courthouse And that information is readily available. As a matter of fact, it is available to purchase online for $5, like $5 and change. So that's one of the resources I chose, not because I felt like evictions were the best list ever, but because I felt like, hey, this is easily available to me. I don't have to spend, if you're in different cities or places where it's not available online, that means you have to go to the courthouse physically. Now, before I even knew about the online stuff, I used to go to the courthouse physically. That's not something I'm really willing to do anymore. When I first got started, I was trying to learn everything. I used to get up 3, 4 in the morning and put out bandit signs. That's not something I'm willing to do anymore. I don't want to do it, so I don't. So that's another piece that you have to look at. Then, especially if you're on a limited budget, we talked last time. I know I said this before, so I apologize for you guys who have been with me for the last 2 weeks, but I will just reiterate, I recommend doing these combination lists, which are basically lists that you can't necessarily buy anywhere, but especially if you're on a limited budget, it's where you can take criteria from different sources and different lists, and in most of your cases, you're going to take the time to do your legwork yourself, probably several hours. In my case, I used to do that myself. Now, I still do that because it's a much better conversion rate for me, but I have a VA that does it on my behalf. But they look at several different lists and pull all these criteria in different filters to make one list. So the example I will give you is one of my favorite lists. It is absentee owners that have recently evicted a tenant. So you find that by pulling the eviction list, right? Then you look at all of the owners that are absentee. Then my VA actually copies and pastes. There might be a faster way to do this at some point in the future, but copies and pastes all of the addresses into Zillow and make sure they're not condo, like, certain condos, they're not like these $1 million properties, which you can sell, but it's not my niche. Make sure they're not manufactured homes or just vacant lots and stuff like that. Those go out the window, right? Because I'm looking for a certain thing. I got certain type of buyers. Then from there, I use my CRM, REIFax. That's my preferred CRM. It's only here in Florida. And I pull a list of, I look at the city. I look at, you can pull by equity. It's not a perfect system, but, they have the potential equity in there. And then you basically cross-reference those lists. If you're using Excel, you can just put a formula, conditional formatting. I show it on my webinar, the last one I did, which you can watch the replay at needmotivatedsellers.com. You download the free ebook first, and then you'll see the webinar. And it shows you how it will look at these two lists, and then any address that appears on both lists will get highlighted. So now that list is a lot smaller. It costs me a lot more to mail to, but the conversion rates are much higher because these are not people who are motivated by just one piece of criteria, but they motivated on several different levels, and I know that they have equity in their property, so it's something that I can do with and deal with. So that's my personal advice on the best list, if there is one, but understand that what's best for me might be different for you based on your personal situation, what you're willing to do, what you like to do, and also, I believe in doubling down on your strengths, and then also the resources and specifically external resources that are available to you. All right. All right, Lewis, let's say I see a property in Jersey. I want to wholesale. Do I have to close with an attorney or title company in Jersey if I live in Florida? Yeah, typically the title company, you need to close in the state where the property is, because you have to, the laws and stuff are different. So like, for example, here in Florida, I think our real estate agents tend to be a little bit more knowledgeable because you don't need an attorney to close. In New York, typically it's an attorney that handles your closing. But law and stuff like that is going to be different. So yeah, you want to close with you can still be in Florida. They'll probably FedEx you your docs if you need to get anything notarized or stuff like that, and you can send it back. So it's not like you got to drive up to Jersey. But yeah, you'd want the title company right there in Jersey. And this is where it helps to have boots on the ground. I had another question about that, and somebody was asking, I forgot what the question was specifically. It's losing me here. But if they have to be present or something like that. But basically, yeah, you can get stuff notarized, and then you don't have to be physically there for the closing. Sorry, I forgot the question. I remember it was a good one. It was something more to it, why it was important. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Guys, I know you got a couple more questions, and I'm seeing stuff pick up. Please, I try to look at these after the after the call, but I don't always do so. So if anything, make sure you email me. I know some of you sent me stuff on Instagram. I didn't even get to check the Instagram messages today because I got a bunch. So the best way for our next call is to email me, mike@wholesalingwithmike.com. I won't be here tomorrow, Thursday. The next live call, the last one of the week, will be Friday, same time, 7 p.m. This feed's shutting off in 9 seconds. So thank you so much for being here. Consider subscribing to the YouTube and definitely check wholesalingwithmike.com. Appreciate you guys being here. Our Instagram feed is done. Look like we're still going here. So I want to thank you guys for being here. And again, make sure you email me your questions, mike@wholesalingwithmike.com. Appreciate you guys being here, man. This has been great. I have some other stuff I kind of want to tell you guys about, but I will save it for our Friday call, so we're not going too long here. Thanks again for being here. I'll see you guys 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. All right, peace.